Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second Mystical Musings podcast. I am Tava Baird,
I am Jennifer Taylor.
and we are here today to spend a little bit of time with you. And today we'll be continuing our discussion that stems from the root of Reiki and witchcraft practice, but who knows where it will go. First, we're going to get an invocation to set the mood for us. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer for that.
Thank you. I invite you, if you are not driving and you're in a safe place, to close your eyes and just take 3 slow, deep breaths. And if you have Reiki, you can activate that for yourself as well. And throughout this invocation, I will also be sending you Reiki and calling light to you. So I invite the divine light of Holy Fire Reiki to fill this space that includes Tava and I and all of those listening on all time frames. Fill our hearts and minds and spirits. I call light to lift and clear all of our energies and the spaces that we are in right now. I invite all of the divine guides of this work, angels, goddesses, the divine in all its beautiful, magnificent aspects, to be here and support us in this time together. We open our hearts and connect in a great circle of love and respect and appreciation. I invite the divine to speak through me and through Tava, to speak to your hearts and provide exactly that which you are seeking and in need of in this moment in time. I invite the divine to come through my voice and deliver exactly the healing and the energy that is in all of our highest good as we come into this sacred space together. Amen. And so it is.
Thank you so much. That was really lovely. Now I'm in such a good space and I'm ready to talk daily spirituality. I don't know about you, but one of the reasons why I think I left um, a lot of like traditional practices of religion is my favorite moment in church when I was a kid was the moment of peace when you would turn to a stranger near you and shake their hand. Then a lot of times when we were in the parking lot afterwards, I went to a lot of churches on large military bases where it's like 500 people all trying to get out of one parking lot entrance and go to the commissary after church. People were like cutting each other off. And I'm like, wait, where did the peace we just had go? And so I think there's been an ongoing quest in my life to find a way to walk through my days with a greater sense of peace and movement of the spirit. And that led me down the paths that I'm currently following. I'm wondering if you'll go first. But one of the things that I also would love that people might not know was at the beginning of your invocation, you said, "I'm going to send you Reiki." And I remember the first time you said that to me, I thought, "Am I getting something in the mail? Like, how how does that work?" Because when we first met, I didn't know anything at all about Reiki, and so you know the idea of distance was an unusual one with that. But I would, if you wouldn't mind, I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you point out things like that because it's such second nature to me at this point that I don't even think about, oh my goodness, yeah, people may have no idea what I'm talking about. So, to start at the very beginning, so Reiki is spiritually guided life force energy. The word Reiki is Japanese kanji, and it actually, Rei is the spiritually guided, and Ki is the life force energy. So the word ki is similar to like chi that you may have heard a lot more frequently used. So spiritually guided life force energy. And it is something that you are attuned to by another person who has that energy. A process has been kind of received by one of the original kind of Reiki masters, Mikao Usui in Japan, had this major enlightenment moment on the top of Mount Karama where he was asking for enlightenment. And he's been described as kind of like being hit by lightning and receiving all this energy. And when that moment was over, he discovered that he also had this healing energy, this healing light that would just flow through his body. As he was running down the mountain, he tripped over these big tree roots and injured his toe, and instantly, as anybody would, put their hands on their toe, and this healing energy just flowed through and healed it. And so he started recognizing this is an additional gift that I would receive. And without going into the history of Reiki too much, just essentially there was a major earthquake and many, many people were in need of healing, and he was healing as many people as he could. He had this light flowing through him, this spiritually guided life force energy, and he would actually lay down and had someone at each hand, at each foot, and above the crown, or some people say he was treating with his breath or his eyes. So he recognized there are too many people for me to treat this way, and he started praying for a way of passing it on. And how can I give this gift to others? And through much prayer and meditation and practice, he developed a method of being able to pass that on, and we call that an attunement. And so anyone then that has received this attunement can have this Reiki energy flowing through them. And so Reiki, it's energy, it's a form of energy healing. And because everything is energy, everything, the sound that we hear, that's because we're receiving sound waves in the form of energy, and our ears are interpreting that and giving us a signal from that. Our eyes are receiving energy in the form of light that is coming in and being interpreted and creating a picture. So the energetic field that is created by our hearts can actually be measured up to 15 feet away from our bodies. So
Whoa.
our brain is giving off energy and has its own energy field. So Reiki flows through us. It flows through my hands. It can flow through my eyes, my feet, my breath. And so as I'm singing, I activate my Reiki. I ask that to flow. And so it's essentially divine energy that is coming in through my crown and flowing through my body in whatever way I direct it. And in doing so, it provides access to exactly the healing vibrations that you need in order to take those in and come more into balance with yourself. So if you're not really sensitive to the feeling of energy flowing in your body. Some people are, it's like, oh, I can instantly, I feel that it's flowing to my hip and it's unraveling something there. And I feel this happening and that happening. But if that's not something that you're already really used to, if you're receiving Reiki, you may just feel much more peaceful. Or sometimes people say, I feel like I just woke up from a really long nap and I feel really rejuvenated after a Reiki treatment. But essentially, what I'm doing is simply being as a hollow reed. I'm opening myself and getting out of the way and allowing this divine, spiritually guided life force energy to flow through me to you. And in doing so, it just provides you access in your whole energy field, which is intelligent and it knows what it needs. It knows how to best utilize this. So I'm really just the connector. I just allow that to flow through me to you. And then you receive exactly what is in your highest good in the moment. So a lot of times people say you're kind of healing somebody or you're healing this or will you heal that for me? And it really doesn't quite work that way. It's more that I will connect you to the source of all healing, all healing in every kind of way without deciding this is what it's supposed to do or this is how it's supposed to work, but rather surrendering to your highest guidance and your higher good and allowing whatever that is to flow through.
You're like opening up the blocked pipes so stuff can come through.
Yes.
You are a spiritual plumber.
Yeah. And I think of it too as like watering a garden. I'm like the hose and the gardener walking around, but the water that flows through me, the water that flows through that hose, I may direct it to this flower over here or this plant over there, but that Reiki flows in and just nourishes and provides all that is needed to really take it in and grow, or like a combination of water and fertilizer. Maybe it's just exactly what it needs. And then the plant knows how to take that up, how to take that in, where to direct that for its highest good.
But you can also do it from far away because it's energy.
Exactly. Yes. And energy, it's everywhere. We are just in a sea of energy and everything is completely connected. I can have a thought about someone on the other side of the planet, and, Reiki or not, there will be some kind of connection because there is this uninterrupted sea of energy that we're all in, and everything is connected. And because of that, when I send Reiki, I really just intentionally tap into the knowledge that there is no such thing as space and time and separation, and we are all one. So when I'm connected to that, the Reiki just flows to whomever or whatever, or wherever it happens to be. And that even includes forward in time and backwards in time, which is another thing that kind of makes our minds explode a little bit because we're so used to the idea of everything as being linear. But, even the scientists say that really ultimately everything is happening in that one moment. Everything's happening at the same time. And it's really just our brain's way of thinking of it. In order for us to have some kind of framework, we've kind of created the idea of yesterday and tomorrow, but ultimately everything is really in the present. And so that's part of how we can send Reiki ahead and it will be there for us, or we can send it back in time to a moment that was really traumatic that really needs healing, and the ripple effects of that will follow and flow into our present and the way that we are reacting and responding to life in the present.
It's so funny because, I was a teacher of young children for 2 decades or ever how long, and young children don't really have a concept of time either. I used to teach this little girl who would say, "Is it yesterday, tomorrow yet?" And I would try to explain to her, okay, yesterday is the past, tomorrow hasn't happened yet, you're in, today, but it's just so interesting. It definitely is a brain construct that we do to be able to feel like we know where we are. And I think that's one of the other things when you and I were speaking. Gosh, it must have been last October because it was when Samael first started showing up. And one of the things I kept saying was, why would By the way, so for those of you who didn't hear our last episode, if you're starting off with episode 2 because you're funky that way. Samael is Seraphim that I channel. And when he first showed up, I had all of these feelings of why would he be talking to me when he is so powerful and I am so not? I thought, why would he spend time talking to me when he has so many other places to be? And the Reiki view that you just talked about, Jen, is you said, well, he could be in all of those places at once. It's not that he's talking to you at the exclusion of doing something else that he's supposed to be doing. That's how that's how humans operate on earth, but that's not how the divine operates. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, well, I'm not, it made me feel a little bit better that way. And so this has been a new concept for me that I've been getting used to over the last 9 months or so, of the idea that the divine can be in more than one place at a time. A divine consciousness can. And so I'm actually really, really grateful for that explanation.
Yeah. And I guess to be really clear, Reiki doesn't necessarily have a doctrine that says this is how the divine works or this is how divine beings are able to be here and there, but that's more my understanding from broader studies and things like that in shamanism and ancient wisdom teachings and things from Peru and Tibet and different kinds of kind of esoteric studies and things like that as well. Reiki really is really a method for transferring divine light to others, that spiritually guided life force energy. But because of that, and there's a wonderful podcast called Beyond the Reiki Gateway, and I love the title because Reiki is so much of a gateway to other things. For so many people, it's your first like dipping your toe in the water of energy work and what's possible. And once you do, and once you start connecting with that energy on a daily basis and allowing it to flow through you, you start recognizing the world of energy that lives around you, the sea of possibilities, the sea of divine, and all of the different aspects of that spiritual world that live around you. And from there, so many people keep going and learning different types of things. They may go into sound healing or shamanism or any of so many different even types of Reiki. There are so many different types of Reiki now. I think there are over 200 different types. There's like
Oh my
angel Reiki,
gosh.
I think like butterfly Reiki and Egyptian Reiki. Like there's so many different branches, but Reiki is just sort of that foundational thing. I think for a lot of people, the thing that first helps you to recognize I can bring through divine energy through my body and direct it. And from doing that, the more you do it, the more you do it, the more you are connected. And it's not that you can't do that in other ways. You certainly know that because you do it in other ways all the time. But it's more, I kind of think of it as a quick and easy, like big, powerful cable hookup to that energy, to where you don't have to spend so long, meditating or kind of really working to connect, but you literally have an attunement and you are instantly able to bring that energy through. And so it's such an easy way to connect up. And then the world is your oyster. You're just starting to explore all kinds of things before you know it.
And I think that just being able to be sensitive to energies, you have to get over a mental hurdle in our society a lot of times to start opening yourself up to that. I was on an entertainment, I think it was like a political entertainment website the other day, and the comment section was going nuts because someone was talking about, their weird friend who was all hippy dippy. And all the comment section was basically all of these people going, well, if you can't see it, it's not real, blah, 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 blah. And first off, I thought, wow, these people sound really jaded. And second, this woman is complaining about a lovely friend of hers who is having an experience she hasn't had, but is immediately discounting it. Right. And there's so much in our Western society that says if you can't see it, it's not there. The thing is, you can't see the wind, and the wind is definitely there. Okay. Like we can see the
Absolutely.
effects of it, right? And you can't see song and voice flowing, but we definitely feel the effects if someone is singing a lullaby or shouting at us, right? That changes the structure of how we function. And so I think one of the things when people, they see Reiki or they see witchcraft, and, witchcraft has all of its own historical stigmas on it, which a lot of times make it even more intimidating to people, is that you have to get over this fear. Well, it's sort of two things. Number one, what are people going to say about me? And number two, am I really experiencing what I think I'm experiencing? But once you start to open yourself up to it and seek out experiences that have an energetic impact on you, you end up with so much evidence that this is happening. That doubt that's been sort of trained into you by our society is always there. It's like, so what's Uncle Herman going to say at Thanksgiving when I tell him I took a Reiki course? Or, what is my significant other going to say if I tell him I want to work a spell? Like, all to shift sort of into witchcraft a little bit, all the energy that Jen was talking about in Reiki, that feeling of things moving through you and that you can direct in the witchcraft world, that's magic, right? That's our term for it. It's this life force. And now magic users can pivot it towards good or otherwise. I'm always a proponent of good. However, um, but that feeling that there is this underlying energy that moves through everything. And if we all go back in time, or in our human concept of time, based on our previous conversation, to look at, when people lived close to the earth, this idea of moving energy through all of us and the concept that we are all one is very much there in everything. Whether you're looking at Native American spiritual practices, or you're looking at, Reiki, or you're looking at European or African or Australian, we all came from a place where we would feel this energy and utilize it. And the witchcraft standpoint, or specifically also the Wiccan standpoint, and I'll get into the difference between those two words in a second, is that as we have moved farther away from nature and our connection with nature, we've lost the ability to feel and work with these energies. And so a main practice in a lot of witchcraft, and definitely in Wicca, is this reconnection and to nature, and being able to feel the magic and the energy moving through you. And once you feel it and you start to learn how to direct it, then you start seeing these incredible things happening. I run into so many people who show up at, a booth I have or in a class that I'm teaching, and say, I want to learn magic, and I give them something to do. And I think they expected me to like take out a staff and like part the clouds. And instead I give them something simple, fairly simple to do. And then I see them the next time and they're always, it worked. It maybe not in exactly the way I thought it would, but oh my gosh, did it work? And there's this amazement. And one of the things that's really interesting is the amazement never really goes away. I've been practicing Wicca for, we're coming up on 4 decades now, and I'm still amazed every time something happens. I think I was really trained into me that this was something that wasn't accessible to me, and that this had to be something my brain was making up. Well, your brain can only make things up so many times before you look at the evidence and say, this is this is really happening. So, if you're sitting out there listening to this and thinking, I would really like to try Reiki, or I would like to know more about working with the energies of nature. I would like to know more about magic, but I'm an office worker driving a 18-year-old Datsun to work. This is accessible to everyone. It is your birthright. It is who you were meant to be. And it's not that you're going to be getting it for the first time. It's something that's going to be given back to you. I will give you another quick example. So I write a fantasy series. And for those of you who like a little spice in your day, yes, it is high heat. I write a fantasy series called The Spiral Pathways. And one of the reasons I wrote the series is that the main character, Sorsha, is a practicing witch. And there are lots and lots of metaphysical and witchcraft books out there. There's almost no pagan fiction. And for a lot of people who are interested in these things, but if you go into, Barnes and Noble, or you go on Amazon, or you go to a metaphysical bookstore, there are so many titles that it can be really overwhelming. What you really wanted was to just kind of dip your toe in and see if it might be interesting to you. And so one of the reasons I wrote this series is so that you're reading fiction, but you're also getting the foundational practices of witchcraft at the same time, because you're watching characters teach other characters with authentic practice, or you're watching them set up a magic circle, or you're watching them celebrate the holidays in a pagan way. And so it's a lot less intimidating that way. And so when I started doing book clubs, when the first book came out, I would be in book clubs with all of these people, and they'd be asking questions about the plot or saying that they really liked the story. But then when the book club was over and I was out in the parking lot, I would always get people like running after me as I was going to my car, and they trying to pull me aside in the parking lot where nobody could hear, and they'd go, "Is the witchcraft real? Because it kind of felt real." And I would say, yeah, it's absolutely real. I mean, I am writing a fantasy series, so there are sometimes flipping opening portals. I don't do that on a daily basis. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying things won't come through to you, but I generally don't take my physical body other places, mostly because I'm a scaredy cat. Um, and my spiritual body can go other places, but I'm also a scaredy cat about that, so I don't do that often. But what people didn't want to ask in front of other people, because they were afraid people would think they were strange, was, is the witchcraft real? But it was the part of the book that they were the most attracted to. And I would explain to them, you are all, and they would say, how do you become a witch? And I would say, you are already one if you want to be one. When you arrived in this world, you are a divine soul with access to nature and access to all of the power of nature. You've just forgotten it. It's been taken away from you, and you've been told that you are a social security number and that this is somehow not for you. It absolutely is for you. And I think that's one of the main reasons why Jen and I are doing this podcast, is to say, this is for you and you can access it. And not only that, there is an enormous community of energy workers and healers and witches of all different stripes out there who are willing to help and happy to talk about it.
Yeah,
So there we go. There's my soapbox. Now I'll step off of it.
absolutely. No,
Be like
I
10 inches shorter.
no, I love that, because you're absolutely right. And I have a lot of the same thing, even though I talked about how, as soon as you have a Reiki attunement, that energy flows through you. The biggest obstacle for people is accepting that that's true, accepting that I really can't do this. This really does have an effect. And I really can access this healing energy for myself and for others. And it is always so beautiful. And I love what you said about how, the all doesn't go away. The, oh my goodness, that really worked. It doesn't go away. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, because it means that we're still living in that sense of awe and wonder and gratitude. And my life has definitely become so much more magical the more I've given into that and accepted it really is real. We really can put our hands on someone and have their pain reduced, or lift their spirits. And you really can talk to nature, and you can really have a conversation with the tree. I feel like at the beginning, my husband and I talk a lot about how everybody has their comfort zone. We all have like a mental governor, like in a vehicle, for example, like school buses, they'll put this like governor thing in there, and basically it won't allow it to go above a certain speed, because it's like, okay, below that speed, the county's decided, everyone's safe. And so it won't allow the bus to go any faster than that. And I feel like we have that in our brains, where there's in our energy field, this sense of this is safe and known. And when something kind of pushes me a little bit beyond that, it feels like, whoa, okay, I don't know. Is this okay? Is this my imagination? Is this good? Is this something that is okay? Or am I going crazy? And so we always joked about that, like there's always a line. And we would be like, okay, well, I've accepted this. Okay, Reiki is a real thing. Yes, energy work is real. But then there was this sense of, and angels talk through us and work through us. And, years ago, that was like, angels aren't really real. Like they showed up in the Bible, they did some things. Maybe that's how it happened. Maybe it was sort of another one of those stories that's just meant to teach you something. But it wasn't like I can call on an angel and have them actually affect things in my life and help to heal something or bring an opportunity or heal a relationship. And then all of a sudden we started having these experiences that we could not deny after connecting with angels. And then it was like, okay, so angels are real, Reiki's real, but and then there's the next little baby step and the next thing. And we would experience it and go, okay, you kind of can't deny that just happened. I mean, there's only so, like you said, there's only so many things that you can go, okay, clearly I just made that up. And then you start accepting, okay, so now that's real. And we joke, we're like, is there even a line at this point? Because every time we'll decide, okay, I'm comfortable with this, but that seems a little far-fetched. And then we'll have an experience.
Yeah. I mean, like when Samael showed up last October, I mean, I have a freaking angel writing books through me, right? Like, and, every single time he shows up, every single time I go through an entire process of, this isn't really happening. This can't be happening. I can see him. I can hear him. He gives me things to write to other people. He answers questions, like, and it's only gotten more intense. It was really funny. You were telling me the other day, Jen, you were having a really difficult day. And, he's given me information to tell Jen. And, and then you said, and I could hear him. And it was funny when you told me that, I was like, well, of course she can hear him. He can go wherever he wants. But it's so funny. Like now I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, lots of people hear him. But every single time it happens, I have to sit down and like examine my own beliefs on reality again. I'm literally like, he's writing for me and I'm still doubting it, like it's insane. And the other thing was, a lot of people, their first experience with the concept of energy is spirits and ghosts. I have lots of people who come up and say, I moved into this old house and things are happening. The archaeology site that I'm working on, when I first went to that inn, I had only had two experiences pretty much in my entire life where I thought, okay, there's definitely something here. And a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting in this house. This is the Blue Ball Inn, and we'll talk more about this on other episodes. And I literally saw my phone jump off a table and slam onto the floor. And someone sitting across from me who had a better vantage point than I did saw it too. And someone that I trust, that like, person who is one of the last people prone to whimsy, she went, that moved on its own. And then we started hearing sounds, not even faint sounds, loud sounds and movement happening on the floor above us. And we knew for a fact we were alone in the house. Your brain, it's so funny. I always thought, from watching Scooby-Doo cartoons, that you'd yell zoinks and run with like whirlwind legs out of a thing the first time you ran into a spirit. and I've had things touch me in that house that I can't see, but I can't deny are there. And it's happened to many, many, many people. It's so funny because I always thought I would just, scream and run. But instead, what actually happens is you see this thing happening in front of you, or you feel this thing on you, and my brain goes through the system that goes, I have a science degree. I have a hard science degree. This cannot be happening and must have an explanation. And then your brain tries to go through the explanations and can't find them. And then it validates that other people are seeing and experiencing this too. And then your brain starts to panic. And you just kind of freeze for a minute where you're there going, oh, okay, my reality needs adjustments to be able to process this. And sometimes it takes a really long time to process. But then after it does process, it has become a part of your fact base. And it's really strange when I run into people and I talk to them and I say, I'm an archaeologist at a house that is extremely embodied by the disembodied. And people go, but you do science. And I go, yeah. And the science has actually, the spiritual aspect has actually led us towards discoveries in the scientific aspect that I would otherwise have not made as quickly. And then I find the paperwork that backs up what people are experiencing in the house. Um, One of the ideas that I subscribe to, and actually I have a character in the book series that talks about this. There's a character I have named Thomas, and he's called the Magician after the magician from the part one of the tarot. And he says, and he's a scientist, but he's also a magician. And he points out that many, many things in history we thought were magic until we had the scientific background to to prove them. And so that what magic is literally just undiscovered science. It's something we don't yet have the proof for, but that they're not two separate things. You don't have to have a scientific mind or a magical mind. They are the same thing. You just have a mind, but some things we don't have all of the data on yet. And so they still fall into the realm of magic. I was a Montessori teacher for a very long time. When Maria Montessori first started teaching, they did not have, CAT scans and MRIs or ways to measure brain waves. And she sat and observed young humans and how they learned. And out of it came up with this entire philosophy of how she thought the human mind worked. And everybody thought she was crazy. And she then put this idea into practice in those days, what was called an insane asylum. And everybody started getting better. And then the society around her kept saying, it's a miracle. It's a miracle, right? She's working miracles. But what she actually was doing was scientific observation and then putting a theory into practice. And we know now, 100 years later, now that we have all of these machines that can look into parts of the brain and see the way that they work, that her theories were correct. But what was a miracle 100 years ago is now science. So all of these things that we're talking about, that, if you're in your car right now, or if you're, sitting at home listening, or you're making dinner or whatever, and you're thinking, ooh, what are people going to think if I dive into magic or I dive into energy work? You're just ahead of the curve, kid, right? Because eventually these things, as our science improves, will be proved and already are. I mean, if you look at, I'll give you another example. So when you think of Pythagoras, right? So those of you who struggled through geometry like I did, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. There's the Pythagorean theorem, right? Pythagoras was the father of geometry. But in his day, that's not what he was not known as a mathematician. He was known as a mystic and an expert on the soul. And he was, first off, his father went to the oracle at Delphi before Pythagoras was born. And the oracle told his father, your child is going to make a huge impact on mankind. So then little Pythagoras comes out. He, is growing up in this very busy merchant city. He's seeing people from all over the world. And they believe that when he was about 18, he left Greece and he went to Egypt to study with the priests there. And the Egyptian priests at the time were not only spiritual leaders, but they were working on astronomy and mathematics and all of these other things that we now consider hard science. And he stayed there with them for decades. And they also believe he traveled to the Middle East and learned there. And then eventually, when he did return back home and started his school. He basically had what we would call a cult today. He had a group of people. They gave up their possessions. He would give it back if it turned out that the group wasn't working for them. They studied together. They ate together. He was a vegetarian, and everybody thought that was really weird. He allowed women to study in the group, which was also unheard of at the time. As a matter of fact, the first Western female mathematician studied with Pythagoras. But so you have him doing this, but at the same time, he's also advancing the concept of the music of the spheres, the idea that the planets and everything around them vibrate to energy. And all of this was seen as mystical, magical stuff in his day and age. That's what he was known for. And now we know, if we look at string theory and a lot of these other things that we consider hard science, they all got their start with Pythagoras. We would not have geometry if it wasn't for this mystic. So, this concept that magic is one thing and that it's superfluous is absolutely, in my opinion, incorrect. Magic is the basis for scientific advancement. And what we're trying to help everybody do here is start to be brave enough to have these experiences that, who knows, may not only pull you towards advancement, but all of us collectively as well. The next Pythagoras could literally be sitting there listening to this podcast right now.
I love everything that you said, and it is so right. And I was listening to you talk about how he was talking about the the sounds or the songs of the spheres. And we took a class with John Stewart Reed, who is the preeminent scientist in terms of sound made visible. And so much of what he talks about is all of the science that has been received really by completely other scientists and astrologers and astronomers who have received literally this songs and recorded that they can now hear the songs of the planets and the songs of all of these different things, and that everything has its own song, and that he can listen to the song of the cell now and have the song of a healthy, like, liver cell, for example, and compare it to the song of an unhealthy diseased liver cell. And that you can play the healthy song, the song of a healthy liver cell, to that unhealthy one, and it will start to regenerate and start to come into resonance and match that healthy one. And there is so much science. It's so exciting, really, to live in this time, because so many of the things that have been entirely in the realm of magic are starting to be discovered by science. And things like that there is an actual song of everything. Every cell is singing its own song. And when those songs come into resonance with each other, that's when we have health. And one of the things that's absolutely beautiful, that he has just created this machine that allows you to see that sound is actually three-dimensional, and that the songs of different things, all sounds, end up making something that looks like a mandala. And that they have gone back to these like ancient temples and places in like Tibet and places where these monks, for hundreds of years have been drawing these mandalas, and seeing that they were actually drawing exactly what the image, what different sounds that they were making, like different things they were chanting, exactly what that looks like. And only they were taking it from a 3D image and putting it on a 2D image. And you can actually play these things. And they've been talking about that these were sacred seed sounds. This was the mantra. This is the artwork version of a mantra. And I'm sure people, outside of that tradition would have been like, yeah, I'm sure it is. Like, this is somehow representative or something, but it's now being shown that no, that's exactly what that sound looks like when you can make it visible through a cimoscope. So I love you. There are so many different examples of how science is now validating stuff that has been considered miracles and magic. Dr. Ann Baldwin, who has a PhD and is a Reiki researcher and professor of physiology at the University of Arizona's College of Medicine, has, shown, she calls it the biofield. And a lot of times in science, they're using terms like biofield for the energy field. And she's the one who has shown that the heart biofield extends 15 feet or more from the body. And it adjusts according to how we feel. When we are really in an expanded place, we're happy, we're healthy, we're exuberant, our energy field, that biofield, expands even further. And then when we're not, it contracts. But they're able to show that every cell in the body produces an electrical charge through positive and negative charges, which then create these magnetic fields. And she says, quote, "The biofield is thought to cause dynamic changes in its vibrational qualities that alter the physiological and psychological functions of living beings." There is so much incredible science out there. Bruce Lipton, who wrote The Biology of Belief, has all kinds of amazing research that shows that PET scans, and even we think about something like, a PET scan or a CAT scan, as being something that's really concrete and scientific. But those are actually, when we look at those, we're actually looking at the energy profiles of our body, not the physical expression of it. And what he says is that the significance of this in healing is that in quantum physics, the energy can be adjusted by other energy rather than through chemistry. And he said recent research has now revealed that energy information signals are 100 times more efficient in controlling biology than our chemical signals. The net result is that we would move away from our pharmaceutical pursuit of healing and move to the energy field as a much more effective and efficient way of introducing health into our body. So, I mean, just 100 times more powerful, using energy to affect energy. And we could go on like that forever, because there's so many different ways that it's all coming together.
And you see it actually even in traditional faiths all over the world. I mean, think about it. When you think about, what do they say in churches over and over again? The word of God. Okay. So word is speech. It's an energetic output, right? And think about how many times the angels are singing in the Bible, right? They sing constantly, angel song. And I'm sorry, I have a very naggy seraphim in the room with me right now that wanted me to bring this point up. And one of the things when we were talking about doing this podcast, I had said to Samael, like, any advice. And the only thing that he brings up, that he hammers over and over and over again, is that he wants Jen to sing on the podcast, and that he wants us to talk about music, that, and so, I mean, the sound of our voices talking about this right now to you is energy coming to you. You can see the evidence of it even in your daily life. When you were a teenager, and you were finding yourself, what did you want to do? Most teenagers, it's headphones on and music becomes a central part of you forming your new identity, right? Music is everything. Music also holds memory in it. You're sitting out at dinner one night and suddenly you hear a song you haven't heard for 20 years and you go, "Oh man, I haven't heard this song in forever." Right? There's a definite reaction that comes out of you with song. We all have first dance songs and, first kiss songs. We have lullabies that are passed down generation to generation. If you're old enough like me to remember the movie Footloose, okay, Kevin Bacon, if you are a young person and you have not seen Footloose, please see it. But here's the thing, Footloose is about this town, and the minister in the town has said there should be no singing or dancing, right? And it's so funny when you watch the movie, immediately you go, "Oh, he's the bad guy." Like you have this reaction to it, like, how could you take away singing and dancing? Singing and dancing have been part of the ways that people connect energetically since there were people. I mean, think about if you've ever participated in a drum circle or a campfire song or just gone to a disco, or a concert. Think of that group feeling of moving energy. We've also probably heard there have been times in the past where the military had somebody surrounded and were trying to get them to come out. And what do? They blast discordant music or annoying music at them, right? So these are all forms of moving energy. And so I think if you want a homework assignment for the week, it's get more music in your life. There is a really cool free little tool online called Music Map. And I know I'm guilty of it. I get into a zone where there's like 5 bands that I listen to, and that's all that I've been listening to. And what you can do on Music Map is you can type in the name of any artist and it makes like a little web and it will show you other artists that have similar music but that's slightly different. And then so say for example I were to type in, well, this is going to date me, you're going to know when I was in college, Sarah McLachlan, okay? It will immediately spit out all the ones that you would expect it to. People who listen to Sarah McLachlan, or tend to be of that a particular age. I'm 52, and they went to college at a certain time, and they also listened to the Indigo Girls and Katie Lang and Ani DeFranco and all of those, right? But then it goes another step. And by using Music Map, I was like, oh, I've got to look up Elephant Revival. Who the heck is Elephant Revival? And when I looked them up, they haven't been together for years, but they still had music available. And I loved them. And it took me a little bit further outside of that musical rut that I get into by introducing me to new artists that are there. And I mean, it's absolutely free. Just type in Music Map on any computer or on your phone, and it's very simple little program, and it will simply say, type in the Beastie Boys, type in whatever it is that you like to listen to, and it will start giving you more and more and more artists. And then you can take one of those, make it the center of the web, and it will web out again. And it will expand. It's sort of like a visual Spotify that you can kind of look through everything first and see what you're interested in. But that's been a really great resource as I try to keep myself from just being stuck in the same musical group thing over and over again. There's also my massage therapist listens to, if you've never listened to the music, David Darling is an incredible, he's got tons of albums and she plays them during massage, and and he's also collaborated with other people, and there are, I think it's 2 albums of his that he did with somebody else. And one of the things, so I thought this was a really interesting story. I believe it's David Darling. So he and another friend of his were both taking care of their ailing fathers who were about to pass away. And they realized that there's lots of music out there sort of celebrating life, but that there wasn't a lot of music that was sort of soothing and preparing the soul that was getting ready to cross out of this life. And he and after their fathers passed on, he and this other composer put together these two albums that are just that. And they are some of the most soothing, grounding, relaxing music I have ever heard. If you're ever, just kind of feeling like your world is in chaos, playing some of these are just, they're just wonderful. And I'm trying to remember what the actual album name is. I will get it for next time. Um, then also, one of the things, and I think we mentioned this last time, on Jen's Willow Ridge Reiki and Healing Arts website, there are free recordings on there that can really help you settle. And I recommend them to all of the people that I mentor when they come to me for their witchcraft training. So
I appreciate that. And I think one of
absolutely.
I really like the point that you're making about how sound carries energy. And it is a really potent mover of energy. And one of the things that I've become aware of, and my husband talks about too, we've talked about that the more sensitive we become to energy, the more aware we are of the energy that is held within different songs and different types of music. And, there are certain artists that we just loved, like absolutely loved. And I love her voice and I love singing, along with it. And yet we realized that there is so much pain in these songs like Evanescence. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
Evanescence. I love it. But what I found is that unless I am really in deep pain and I need to move it through, that my listening to and singing along with that now actually puts it, it's like it brings in pain
Yes.
and it shifts my energy into a different place. And we've recognized that there are certain things and certain artists that we've just loved, we've listened to for years and years, but that we've had to stop listening to because it was actually sort of opening ourselves to this well of pain that was then drawing in more of that energy that was unnecessary for us because that's not the place that we're in. But I think
Right.
it's super helpful for people that are having a hard time moving difficult emotions. There was a time when I was living with that kind of pain and turmoil and singing it and going ahead and letting myself sing that pain was really helpful. But I think it's important to recognize when you're listening to some of these things, is it, some music helps you to bring out your anger and let you feel it because emotions are, energy in motion. They're meant to be in motion. And when we stuff them, things become unhealthy. But to recognize and kind of become aware of how is the music that I'm listening to affecting my energy? And is it bringing me into more of a sense of harmony and resonance and balance? Is it raising my energy when I'm down and I need to have a leg up? Or is it continuing to keep me wallowing in a certain pain that has run its course and it's time to move out and it's time to move and shift into something else? But I think it's really, really good to just be aware because our energy is such a huge part of music. I mean, that's just what's bringing everything through. That's why we're just moved to tears by certain songs, either the beauty in it or the pain in it, and you really feel what that artist is feeling. But just to remind ourselves that we might not want to feel what that artist is feeling. It
Right.
was a
Right.
beautiful cathartic thing for her to let that out, but is that really something that I want to be putting into me on a regular basis? And the same with, TV shows or things, just as you become more aware of your energy field and aware of yourself, it's really good to become aware too of how you're affected by different things and make some conscious choices to include more of the music that uplifts you, that nourishes your soul, that helps you to bring you into alignment when that's what you're seeking.
Yeah. And I think in singing too, I mean, there are there are gospel singers I have heard, and when you hear them really let loose, there is no doubt at all in your mind that the divine is there. Like
Yeah.
you hear it, come through. And music was always my favorite part growing up of going to church or going to Girl Scout camp or going to whatever, is when everyone was singing. There's a unity there and you can feel the movement in you. But I think what you're saying is exactly right. Like I love Adele. Adele has a fantastic voice. But if I sing Adele songs or I listen to more than about three of them in a row, I feel like I just got broken up with. You know,
Yes.
that's
I
what
start
Adele
thinking, is my
sings.
relationship good? I
What
feel like it was good.
it's going well, and there are certain songs that you can't help but dance to, and you will always dance to them. And like one of my favorite songs ever since I was a little kid that I always feel like the energy just gets kind of frantic. Have you ever heard that song by the Charlie Daniels Band, Devil Went Down to Georgia,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Who doesn't love The Devil Went Down to Georgia? But there's that frantic violin, that frantic fiddle going on in the middle that almost gets discordant and twisted. And when you listen to that, you're like, holy, that really does sound like it came from hell, like and it's there, it's just got this incredible thing. So, one of the things that I've been trying to do for more self-care, we're in a media environment right now, especially with the news, and unfortunately, when we talk about, um, the news, we transitioned about 20 years ago to a 24-hour news cycle, which means we have to repeat things over and over and over and over again, which means we're also repeating, because what attracts attention, bad news over and over and over and over again. And so when you take your lunch break and the web is full of terrifying stories, and then the TV is full of terrifying stories, and then your phone is full of terrifying stories, and then you're talking to other people, and what are they talking about? Terrifying stories. Each of those has an energetic impact on you. And what I've been trying to do recently is say, you know what? I already have the information I need to make the decisions that I need to make to do my part in society in this realm. Instead of being bombarded by a 24-hour news cycle right now that I don't think is going to change what my action is going to be. I'm going to turn that off and I am going to listen to some music that will energetically put me in a good place so that I can do more good in my sphere around me, that I can reach out to people around me and make their days better, that I can be in a good and receptive headspace to hear other people's troubles and try to help them, that I can be balanced as I go through my day and get the things that I need to get done for my family and for my creative soul done. Because each of those has an impact. And I was just finding as I'm walking around through the day that I'm becoming grumpy and nasty and living in a fear-based headspace for no reason other than the exact same 10 stories are being thrown at me. I actually read somebody had printed this or published it, and I read it on a news site about 24 hours ago, and I'll have to see if I can find it. There was a scientific study done, and I think it was back in the 70s or 80s, that said that if you bombarded people with scary stories or fear-based stories, no matter how ridiculous the actual facts of the story were, it took something like only 7 repetitions before they absolutely believed it. So we have to really look at the sounds that are coming into our world and how they might be altering our beliefs about how much power and control we have and how much power and control we don't have. And the way that we feel about other people, are we now making up imaginary enemies in our mind that may not be there? And is it impacting our daily life simply because of the way that our current media society transmits information? You know, when I was growing up in the 1970s, there was the 6 o'clock news. My parents heard the news on the 6 o'clock news. They might hear a brief radio report in between songs when they were listening to live radio, and that was it. It wasn't there on their lunch break. It wasn't there on their Facebook feed. It wasn't there on all of these other things. We are buried under an avalanche of negative, hysterical voices and sound. And we have to be able to counteract that. One of the best things that I've been doing for myself, as a child of a military father, we always lived near the beach when I was growing up because he was stationed on board ships. And the sound of ocean waves, that beautiful white noise of ocean waves, and that sound of the eternal movement of water. And in witchcraft, water represents love, right? It represents creativity. I have always slept better where I could hear the ocean. And I live in the mountains now, right? And a couple of weeks ago, I thought, well, I have an Alexa. You know, I can literally turn on ocean sounds and leave them running all night long while I'm sleeping. And I am sleeping like a baby now. I fall asleep to that repetitive sound of the earth and the moon and the water moving. And it stays on all night long. I'm starting to leave it in the background when I write. I am just playing it constantly. I've turned it off now because we're, recording a podcast, but it is altering the feeling that I have of everything is okay, because instead of listening to newscasters, I'm listening to, albeit recorded, nature. So that's another way to sort of bring it in. There's so many beautiful recordings. And actually, I would mention the artist David Darling earlier. He puts a lot of bird song and nature sounds behind some of his things as well. A lot of his songs intro with the sound of a babbling brook or a bird singing or something like that. If you can get those natural sounds in, or go outside. People used to sit on their front porches and watch the world go by. Take a lawn chair out there and sit and watch dusk fall. Watch the lightning bugs. Listen to the sound of the breeze in the trees. Go listen to nature. It will help to counteract all of this uh, programming that is being sent at us. And it's called programming for a reason. It's
Yeah,
helping
really.
us. Yeah, it's teaching us to listen to them. What we really need to be listening to is ourselves and our connection to the natural world.
And one thing that I'll add to the sound of the ocean, and just another element that you can add, literally element that you can add, this will make sense in a minute, that you can add to that is to also consciously invoke the energy of the ocean. So when Aunt Tava was talking about the sound of the ocean and receiving the energy of that, in addition to just listening to and receiving that sound information, we can also call in Goddess Yemaya, the goddess of the salty waters, who comes and clears and clarifies our energy and our spaces and our being. And it is as simple as saying, Goddess Yemaya, please come in with these waves, be with me and cleanse and clear my energy, my thoughts, my being, that I may ride the waves of life, that I may be cleansed and cleared by these salty waters and your energy and my entire space. And so that can add another layer, another level to what you're doing. Or if you're not comfortable with connecting with the idea of a goddess, and that's, I'm sure it's an entire other podcast in itself, you can simply invoke the element of water and invite the element of water to come into your day, to come into yourself, and doing the same thing, cleansing and clearing and washing away and nourishing your body and mind and spirit. And it doesn't take long, and it doesn't have to require a lot of belief or practice or anything else to do that. You can just simply try it. We know that the sound of ocean waves is soothing. We know that the sound of a babbling brook is soothing. And as you listen to it, just take a moment to say, I invite in the energy of water. I invite the element of water and all of the blessings that it brings. And you don't have to know, what the element of air specifically is known to bring in. You can sit, when she was talking about you sitting on your front porch and listening to the breeze, you can simply invite the blessings that the element of the air, the element of the wind can bring to you in this moment. And also, even just ask that blessings be sent from you out into the world along with it. It's something that simple, but it can really transform the moment into something incredibly magical and beautiful.
I think probably one of the things maybe for our next podcast, because I'm looking at the time and I'm going, we might need to do it on the next one, is I would love to talk a little bit about the difference between invoking and praying, which I think is an interesting line for people to know because what you just heard Jen use the word invoke, and there's a difference between invoking and praying. And so I know I'm going to make a note, that's something we should do on the next one. But speaking of song and beautiful song, can I talk you into doing a song for our closing too? I would love to get some beautiful energetic sound for the rest of the day.
I would be happy to do that. And if there's anything that Samael would like to say at the end or anything, I'm totally open to that as well. And so I know we've talked about a lot of different things today and a lot of different topics. And so I'm asking that the divine energy of Reiki, the energy of the divine and all of its different magical, beautiful, sacred forms comes in and wrap around us and help us to integrate all of this information, to integrate the healing energies that have been sent throughout this. And as we were talking, I was also just sending Reiki as well to support us. So let's just close your eyes again if you're not driving, and draw your attention back to your breath. We focus on the space in the center of your heart. The center of your chest is the center of your heart chakra. Just imagine breathing in and out from that space. And as we were talking about the energy of water, I'm going to just invite the energy of the salty waters, the energy of Yemaya to speak through my voice, to bring in cleansing and clearing and healing exactly what it is that you are needing in this moment in time to refresh and nourish your soul.
something interesting has happened. When you were singing just now, um, Samael was giving me things to write, to share. And so I think I have the feeling this may become a habit that you sing and he comes through. Your song definitely brings through a message. And this is what I scratched down on the first piece of paper I could find, a lovely envelope I have sitting here. So he wants to tell people who are listening, be well, children. Open up your heart. We are here for you. Your ancestors are here. Understand that it is you and what you learn that moves this existence forward. Bathe and play in the waters and sing your songs. It is the first step on your path back towards us. Raise your voice. When you do this, your divine power cannot be denied. We are all one tribe. We are all one. You are never, ever alone. So, this has been the Mystical Musings podcast with Jennifer Taylor and Tava Baird. Thank you so much for joining us today. May you spend the rest of your day walking in peace.